Johnny Ball is a television presenter and populariser of mathematics who's written 20 TV factual information series and written and produced 7 theatre productions. Now, on Tuesday the 7th of February at the Leicester Square Theatre, Johnny and daughter Zoe Ball will be presenting Johnny Ball, My Previous Life in Comedy. And Johnny Ball is on the line with us here from South Buckinghamshire. Good afternoon, Johnny.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm all fine. I'm very, very well, considering my age and all that. You know, I've been around a long time, but I'm fine, yeah.
Yeah. Well, at your age, you're still full of energy and still doing all these shows, aren't you?
That's right, yeah. I've got a show called Wonders Beyond Numbers based on my book called Wonders Beyond Numbers. Oh, hang on. And there it is. You see, and that's a 500-page book, but that's on maths. But I wanted it to be the most readable history of maths ever written. And so that's what I've done. It sells very well.
Now, a lot of people will know you best for trying to popularise maths, but you began your entertainment career working as a red coat at Butlins and also an entertainer in the Northern Comedy Clubs.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a good way to start?
It was a tremendous way to start. By the time I was 11, I decided I wanted to be a comedian when I grew up. And I'd been to Blackpool. My parents took me to Blackpool on holiday, and I'd seen George Formby, and I'd seen Frank Randall and all kinds of people like that. And my dad had LPs of all kinds of performers. And so I thought, no, wouldn't it be lovely to spend my life making people happy and making them laugh? So that's how it started.
Was there much money in comedy in those days?
When I started the first clubs, I think I was £2.10 or £3 a night, you know. But soon I was on about £40 a week. And then it got better and better. The first year I was a pro was 1964. I only had 7 or 8 nights off in the year. I did over 100 miles a day in my minivan, in my little minivan, and running into the ground. And a couple of years later, I was earning so much money that I once bought a Rover 2000, which they used to call the working man's Rolls Royce. And I went into a shop in Portsmouth. I said, "Can I have that car?" And they said, "It's £1,400. I said, "Well, hang on, I've got that in my wallet." And I paid for a brand new car out of my wallet in those days. So I always earned well. But it wasn't the money. It was just the joy of working with people and making people laugh.
Yeah.
So I love that.
And how did you go from that to working on children's television? Because children's television can be funny, but it's maybe not a natural progression.
Well, as I went along, I looked at other comedians and I looked at things, and I didn't, for instance, I turned down Opportunity Knocks, which Les Dawson did, and it got Les away. Freddie Davis, a friend of mine, Parrot Face, he did Op Knocks, got him away. They were away. Suddenly they were doing theatres and they were doing television. But what I did when I was in clubs, I pleased the audience. So if the audience wanted it slightly risque or blue, I would give it to them like that, and have a night out with them, doing it, having a night the way they wanted it, and I liked that. And I changed my act time and time again. So sometimes I work spotlessly clean because the audience wanted that way. I didn't like doing theatre because in theatre you do about 12 minutes, 15 minutes. In cabaret, I was doing 25, 35, even an hour sometimes, and I loved it. And then I thought, but I don't want to do this on television. It's not the thing I want to do. So I was in this quandary. But that was a while. But all the time I was earning well, and I was working with all kinds of people. Harry Seacombe was my agent for a while as I was struggling to find a new way, and it worked very well. I had a great time.
I suppose you were going from a real-life audience in person of mainly adults to talking down a lens where your audience is mainly children. How did you manage to adapt to that change?
What happened? I was doing radio broadcasts with people like Les Dawson and Mike Yarwood and Freddie Davis. We were all young and up-and-coming comedians. And I did radios out of Manchester, a lot of them. And suddenly, the producer got a query. Anybody interested in doing children's television for the BBC? So we thought, because he's ringing an agent or a producer who handles comedians, it had to be Crackerjack. So immediately I applied, got this interview, went in. In 5 minutes, I got this job. I knew I'd got this job in 5 minutes. I was buzzing, and he said, "Oh, you're going to be wonderful in play school." I said, what's Play School? He said, it's for under fives at 11 o'clock in the morning on BBC Two. Well, nobody had BBC Two. It was only the second year of BBC Two, third year. And so I'd never seen BBC Two. And I said, no, I was up for the door. And he urged me to come back, asked me to do an audition. I did an audition, got the audition. This is the thing in show business, you always get the jobs you don't want. It's always easy to get the jobs you don't want. And I got this one, and I thought, well, I'll try it. After 3 weeks, I decided the integrity of the people who produced it was so lovely that it was a total change from cabaret. And I wanted to say, the other thing was, I was at the BBC Television Centre and I was learning about television. And I hadn't been able to get in as a comedian and didn't even want to get in with the cabaret act I was doing as a comedian. So I started writing sketches. And it all started from there, and it all changed.
Yeah. How did it feel to work at Television Centre? Because back in those days, just about every TV show, from the news to Doctor Who, was happening there. It was a massive juggernaut.
It was the biggest television centre in the world. There was nothing bigger in Hollywood. There were film studios with bigger areas, but there were 8 major studios and 2 or 3 news studios, all in one place. And it was just fabulous. And you rubbed shoulders with everybody. The 2 Ronnies would be in the next studio to us, Morecambe and Wise. Eric Morecambe and Eddie Braben, his writer, would walk around the Play School set in their breaks, and we'd have a chat and everything, and finish up in the bar later. And it was just wonderful, the whole thing. And I started to observe, for instance, I went to a seminar one day and it was about special effects. Now, they were all directors, and I was told you can't go in because you're not a director at the BBC. But I crept in with a mate of mine. And they showed how to do triple passes, how to do slash screens where you walk through a solid door. How to have one person standing on another person, but it's the same person. Within a year, doing my programs, Think of a Number, I'd used every trick. I was the only person at the BBC who used every single trick, all within 18 months of seeing that seminar. So that's what it was all about. So, and it was my background in comedy. I was always looking for the funny angle. I'm not being very funny today. I haven't said anything funny to you. But it was the fun angle. It always was the fun angle. So every program I did started with some kind of spoof. I'd be a mad professor or a nutty idiot, or something like that. And there was always gags, and there was always little sketch gags later on. And I'd mix it so that the feel for the program was up and down, serious here, and then a bit of fun, then more serious, and slowly turn the screw on seriousness. And that's what I did. And I felt my structure was better than, say, Tomorrow's World, because Tomorrow's World was a magazine program where you get a very good item and then something boring as hell, absolutely boring, and then something else that was all, well, the government have said, and it's that kind of thing. Yeah. And it ceases to be entertainment, then it is entertainment. You never knew where you were. So eventually, Tomorrow's World collapsed. They asked me to do it 3 times, and 3 times I said no, unless I could write my own material. And they said, no, you'll have a writer. I said, I've just written then 16 series of programs. Why would I need a writer? Oh, but you're a very good performer. I said, could it be my scripts are good? Could it be the scripts? So I never got on with them, and adult television wouldn't let me in, and it didn't matter. I ploughed my own furrow, and it was great fun.
I was going to ask, because did you ever worry about being typecast as some kind of children's entertainer rather than a comedian or broadcaster in general?
Well, I was still doing clubs, and sometimes quite rough clubs, and the fellas would come up to me with a pint. Still doing that Play School, John? And I go, yeah, you're still watching it? Yeah, right. And if they heckled me about get back to Play School, I say, another word from you and you're going through the square window. All right. And I got away with it. I didn't mind the jibes there. And it was totally different. And you've got to accept, even the producers, you see, love me doing cabaret as well, and because they love people doing different things, not being just in one furrow. So it was lovely. I enjoyed it tremendously.
So what was it that actually led you to specialise in maths programmes?
Well, when I was at school, I was great at maths until I was 11, and I was very good in Bristol, but we moved to Bolton. Now, this was in 1949, when we moved to Bolton, before television. Television really got going about 1953, and not till the 60s and 70s did it really get going. And so in those days before television, if you had a Bristol accent in Bolton, it was like speaking Urdu. It was just like a foreign language. And the teachers didn't understand me. But I'd been top in Bristol, and I was top at the beginning in my school in Bolton. You know, got the maths prize, chess prize in the first year. And then I went from 2B, 3C, 4D, lower 5E, and the last year 5E, because they didn't have a 5F. And 2 O levels, but when they checked, they realised I'd got 100% in maths, and I hadn't taken a note for 2 years. I'd done it myself. I studied it myself, and I love maths. So all this time later, I'm now trying to get into television. I'm writing sketches and things. I wrote 3 situation comedies. They all failed, and they all failed because of political reasons. There were 3 lovely girls called the Carlins in Scotland. They were fabulous. Triplets, identical triplets. And I wrote a series for them. And BBC Scotland said, if their LP does well, we're doing this series, no question. Their LP hardly saw the light of day, sadly, and it never happened. They were lovely girls, but they went back to Scotland, and I still hope they're singing, you know, but they're getting on a bit now. However, that was it. Then I wrote a sitcom on Dockers called No Holds Barred. Thames Television loved it. Everybody wanted to do it. And then an executive said, you do know that 10 years ago we tried to do Dockers like we did on the buses. And the dock union said, you ever do that with Dockers and we'll close the London docks. So they wouldn't do it. Nobody would touch it with a barge pole. And that's why I finished up writing Think of a Number and things like that, because suddenly I had a neighbour. And this neighbour had 2 sons, and they were fee paying school. And they were getting fed up with maths. They were about 12 and 14, 15. So I said, I'll show them some of the maths I know, because maths had been my hobby since leaving school, and I'd bought lots and lots of books. So I showed them the maths that I was interested in. They not only went on to do well in maths, but one of them became Wrangler. Now, Wrangler is the top mathematician at Cambridge University. And this was a lad, David, who had wanted to drop out of maths at 14 and 15, and I turned him around and he became Wrangler at Cambridge. And it was his dad who said, you shouldn't be doing comedy. I mean, you have your comedy, but you should be doing maths and science. So that's what I started to do. I started to write. I wrote Think of a Number, and she suggested I do a show on maths, and they didn't know what I was talking about. So nobody could regulate me. So by the time we'd done the first, I did the pilot, and there's about 12 people watching the pilot. The crew, the people who check the lighting and know where the camera's going to be and all that, they were there, and that's all. And I did this 25-minute program with no script, just like I did a stand-up act. And they stood and applauded and applauded and applauded. And we knew we got a chance. So we did the first series, won BAFTA. My agent said, you won BAFTA. And I said, what's a BAFTA? But I didn't know. And we won BAFTA. And then we did Think Again. And then we were winning awards all over the world. And I went to New York for the International Emmys. And the International Emmys was a big deal, you know. And we went there, this huge hall with, I don't know, 1,000 people, perhaps 1,500. But we were up against another program, and they'd hired the very same room in this skyscraper, 1 floor above, to celebrate them winning the category I was in. And their budget was 20 times, more than 20 times our budget, and they won it. And it's called Fraggle Rock, and it was the people who produced the Muppets.
Yes. They
even asked me if I joined them, but they said it from Canada, and they wanted me to go to Canada. I said, no, I'm too busy in England, so I didn't go. But the Jim Henson group sort of hinted that they could find me a job. They'd have to happily have me on board, and I didn't go that way. Pity, really.
Do you think that your sort of mixture in comedy and the kind of visual gags you mentioned earlier made the audience more likely to actually listen to what you've got to say and learn from the maths? Yeah,
you do all kinds of things. I'll tell you what I did the show. I did a show in 2000, in the year 2000, for the British government. It was Tony Blair was Prime Minister, and he was on stage with Blunkett, who was the education minister, when we launched this show. And my show, it was International Maths Year 2000, and my show was the core of the British maths effort, and it was called Tales of Maths and Legend, right? Oh. And they were on stage for the beginning, and the show went well. We played to about 160,000 kids. We came to Playhouse, Edinburgh, and which one in Glasgow? Was that the big one in Glasgow?
Oh, I think there's a few, isn't there?
I know. Well, we did those. We went to Aberdeen. We went up there. We went everywhere. We reached over 160,000 kids, but we were only doing Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, 2 shows a day, averaging 3,500 kids a day in big theatres, and we couldn't do 5 days because the schools won't come out on Mondays and they won't come out on Wednesdays. Monday mornings, they won't come out. Wednesday afternoons. So we only do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we were shattered anyway. So let me tell you the story. It's a lovely story. So I'd written the show and it was too long. So I had to cut something. So I cut the interval. The interval by 5 minutes. So we'd have up to 2,000 kids. And they had 20 minutes to get out, have a wee, and get an ice cream and get back in their seats. And I cut it to 15 minutes. They couldn't possibly do it. So we came on the second half, and they were looking a bit disgruntled. And we did this song. You've got to get your pencil out, write it down. That's the best way we have found. Always use a pencil, never use a pen. So if you get it on, you can rub it out again. And then we did the last verse for these kids. Now, the kids were 9 to 14, right? So in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve had trouble multiplying. Oh, would you believe? They could count up to 20 on fingers and toes, which is one that you're not having any clothes. You've got to get your pencil out, write it down. That's the best way we have found. He said, counting on your body really is such fun. Adam said, why do I keep getting 21? La, 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 la. As we came round, the kids are going, it's Willie. And we got that audience. We had them. They listened totally to us, waiting for the next mucky joke. And there wasn't one. There wasn't one. And it was just a joy to do that. And we had the kids absolutely loving it. We did one called Energy Champions, and that I had people come up to me and say, "It changed my life," and I saw Energy Champions, and we produced that. And the ending was, "We want you to be energy champions. We hope that you be energy champions." It was the 1812 overture, right? So energy, and we had these big hydrogen balloons. Now, if you've ever popped a helium balloon, you heard nothing. A hydrogen balloon, when you pop it, when you put a taper to it, you put a sparkler on a pole and you put that to it. So, we must save energy, conserve our energy, save it, please don't waste it, boom. We must save energy, as everyone can see. Must say, boom, and up the balloons are going, and the noise is deafening. And the whole thing, that's how the whole thing finished, and it was just tremendous. But we used to have to carry a hydrogen flask around with us.
Wow.
And we were breaking all kinds of regulations. It had to be in an open back truck. It wasn't in an open back truck. It was in our Luton van. We never had a problem with it. And now people are promoting hydrogen as the new fuel and the new way of easing the way we harm the planet. There's a lot going for it, and I'm doing some talks on it in a few months' time because I'm still occasionally involved in science today. But it's the comedy, and it was putting the comedy into it all that was so wonderful.
How do you still remember all the songs?
Oh, well, I wrote them. I wrote them all. Umpteen songs. You know, the opening to Let the Force Be With You is Isaac Newton running down the aisle, full theatre, and he said, "Have you seen it? Have you seen it? Quick, I'm late. Have you seen it?" And on the stage, there's an apple with a spotlight on it, and it's about 7 foot high. And he said, "There it is," he said, and he rushes across the stage. And as he gets under it, the apple goes and bam, bam, falls on his head. And he sang, "An apple fell upon my head." In the piano, I would have been dead. And I've got a gag in at the very opening, but it's almost so I had to delay it so that everybody could think about the gag. Had it been a piano, I would have been dead. As the apple fell down and woke me up, why did it come down? Why didn't it go up? The answer is simple: the force of gravity. And no one knew until it was discovered by me. And there we're off, and we're off into the musical, and it was great. And Marie Curie comes comes on and she says, what about the women in science from offstage? And already James Watts, got James Watt on. My name's James Watson. I was a lad. I worked in Glasgow, which wasn't bad, to work with cogs and gears and springs and cogs and wheels inside machines to give the world a driving force. That was my early dream, and I achieved it when I made my engine powered by steam. Let the force be with you. And there we are. And then on comes Marie Curie, and she said, what about the women in science? And they both said, women in science, rubbish. People take a dim view of a woman in science, and she comes on and she's glowing because she's radioactive. And she says, nobody takes a dim view of me. And this is a lovely opening for kids. I'm Marie Curie, and I come from Poland, but I made my home in Paris, where I married Guess, my teacher. Really? Never? Yes. And with Pierre, I studied radiation and X-rays, which changed the world forever in oh so many ways. So here's a girl, as a student, fell in love with their teacher and married her. Now, how many schoolgirls of that has crossed their mind that they've had a teacher? Don't go any further than that. But that's what. So I always got that into the show. So if you like, it was adult thoughts. It was adult and not kiddie, not childish. And great times.
And you're described as a populariser of mathematics, which sounds like an impossible task for many children. Do you think you managed to achieve that?
Absolutely. I did it. I did it for a long, long time. I don't do it so much now because people think when you're 84, they think you've fallen off the perch. No, I'm still going. And I do a show, Wonders Beyond Numbers, which we tour. But since COVID, the theatre numbers right across the board are well down on where they were before COVID. So although the last time I did it, we had a good house, we had about 60% of the house, but I signed books for an hour and a half afterwards.
Wow.
People who just wanted to hear the books. So I paused that show, hoping the audience will all build back. And I'll be pushing that show out later because that's my Wonders Beyond Numbers tour. And in that, I show them how simple maths is. So here's a trick. Give me two numbers between 100 and 110. Give me two. I'll multiply them quite quickly for you.
102 and 105.
10710. That's the answer. So how does that work? If you're multiplying 100 by 100, you get 10,000. It's a 1 and 4 other digits. The 2 and the 5 will lead you to two more two-digit numbers. Add the 2 and the 5, 7, but you've got to call it 07. Put that down. So you 107, and then 2 5s is 10, 10. 10710, and you've done it. And that's Indian maths. And it's so simple. And there are so many simple ways of making maths fun.
Yeah. Now, your daughter is quite famous as well as you. So what was your reaction when Zoe initially told you that she wanted to be a bit like you and be a broadcaster as well?
Oh, I couldn't see it going any other way. She once said to me, she was about 13, and she said, you know, I think I'd like to be an air hostess. And I was so cruel. Do you know what I said? I said, a waitress on an aeroplane. And she went, oh, yeah. So that was out the window. And she used to come to the studio and see my programs, especially when I was on the Saturday morning shows. And she would come in and, there's no question that's where she wanted to go, you know. So in sixth form, she chose a sixth form college instead of the school she was at. And she studied boys. like teenagers do. Teenagers, when from 16 to 18, you study the opposite sex. Really, you that's what your life's all about. So it's very difficult for anybody to get any education into you when you're that age, and that's the way it is. But then you learn. So she said, "No, I want to go in." I had one phone number for her, and from my agent, and it didn't work. But the person said, "Oh," and I told her, "This is the thing. If you want to get a job, there's two things to do. If you want to get a job, young people, right? The first one is if you talk to anybody on the phone, stand up. Do not sit down when you're talking to people and you're trying to influence them. Stand up and move around. When I'm on the phone, I still walk around the room standing up, and the energy is there. So that's the first thing. But the next thing for all young people is, and this sounds impossible, but believe me, it isn't. How do you get a good job? You start at the top. Andre Previn became an incredible musician. Luckily, lived in Los Angeles. Luckily, near the studios. Looked at the major composer in the day, the one he wanted to copy or emulate. Found out which hotel he stayed in, went to the desk and said, is he in? They said, no, but he does stay here, and we think he's here next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So he sat in the lobby until he saw this great composer passing, and he went up and says, can I talk to you? My name is Andre Previn, and I want to be a film composer like you, and I'd like you to listen to some of my music. And he said, I haven't time now. And he saw Andre Previn's face, and he said, I'm here next Tuesday. Could you make Tuesday? Yes, 1 o'clock. So he went there at 1 o'clock, went to the hotel room, and there's a piano, and the man is having a meeting with 2 other people. He said, go on, play your music. No more other. And they carried on the meeting, and he started playing his music. When the people had gone, the guy turned to him and he said, you're not as good as you think you are, but you're going to be better. I can see it. And immediately he had a job in films. Start at the top. That's what you know. How did I get into this? Oh, yes. So Zoe, I had a producer. He couldn't do it. He said, no, but ITV are starting their summer children's Saturday morning. Ring this number. She rang and said, no, we've got all the crew from last year. But hang on, B Sky B are opening up. They're doing Saturday and Sunday. And she rang them. As incredible luck had it, the director was somebody I knew. He gave Zoe a chance, and she was working in Granada, and that's it. And she was away. But so, Michaela Strachan, who does Winter Watch now, who is fabulous. I love Michaela, and who's a great friend. Zoe was the runner for Michaela Strachan, and couldn't have had a better presenter to learn from the start. And she was away. And then she did Big Breakfast. And then Children's wanted her, and then Big Breakfast wanted her back, and she was away, and it was lovely. Notice, though, as soon as Zoe got away, they retired me.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing, you see. When you get to about 50 in television, you're on shaky ground. People go on much longer, but no, around 50, you're on shaky ground. And you'll notice Zoe doesn't do children's television anymore. She does radio and lots of other things. But she said, oh, yeah, they froze me out when I was getting not even 50, much lower than that. But she did the radio. She loves doing the radio and lots of other things. So that's good.
She's got the biggest radio gig in the country, maybe even the biggest gig in Europe.
The biggest gig. She's very honoured. I wrote when she was 40. I wrote for Zoe, you're the tops, you're the Brighton flower, because you lived in Brighton. You're the tops, Blackpool's second tower, because in a 5-inch heel, she's nearly as tall as Blackpool Tower when she was born.
Well, up at the top of the tower, she was born.
No, in Blackpool. She was in the infirmary. At the tops, you're the Brighton flower, top Blackpool's second tower, and just like me, it was on Kids Tea when your career first begun. You were the first ever girl to be given a World on Breakfast Radio 1. Oh, what fun. You're a winning slogan on Radio 2. You're the best since World War. I'm an aging turn who just won't learn where to stop. But babe, I'm mediocre. You're the tops. And I wrote that for her 40th birthday.
It's impressive.
And there's 4 other verses, but I'm not.
You and Zoe are going to be presenting My Previous Life in Comedy on Tuesday the 7th of February at the Leicester Square Theatre. What can we expect from the show? I was writing this, and I should turn it into a book, and it probably will turn into a book. But I was including my life story, warts and all. And there are some warts. There were some terrible catastrophes that have befallen me. And we had a read through the other day, and my wife was there, and Zoe was there, and they said, "You're not doing that. Cut that out." So we're all doing. So we're flowing through as though my whole career was a blameless success all the way through. But it's the people I met. It's the comedians I met. It's the people. I was in Glasgow when Billy, the Biggin, started. And wow. I think he started in a thing called At Last, the Welly Boot Show. And I didn't see it, but people told me to go. And frankly, because I was working myself, I didn't get to see it. But that's when this incredible comedy machine, Billy Connolly, started. And it's just... And it's, in a way, I'm like Billy in that I just want to tell it as it is. Yeah. But Billy is the master of getting laughs out of telling it as it is. Doesn't matter how rude it gets. Yeah. Because the way he does it, it's not rude. It's that you go with him. And that's the art. So I'll probably be doing something
a shadow of. Or, you see, the reason we're at the Leicester Square Theatre is a 400, 500 seater. The O2 was booked because Peter Kay's there. Now, Peter Kay comes from Bolton, and I come from Bolton. And if you look at Peter Kay's bill matter, it says Peter Kay, one of Bolton's finest comedians.
One of.
Referring to me as the other one. I don't know. but no, what another wonderful comic. I was never anywhere near as strong as they were, but on my night I was. And a comedian knows what I'm saying here. When you have an audience and you roll with them and they roll with you, you could be the greatest comedian in the world just for that hour. Yeah. Just for that. It is so wonderful. And so I'm hoping we'll get a good few laughs and definitely no warts, no nasty things.
Yes.
And Zoe might be in for all kinds of problems because if I'm let loose, you never know what I'll get her into. Yeah. So we'll see.
And what else is coming up for you after this?
I want to do the Wonders Beyond Numbers show again, do the tour again, and I want to write a book. I've written about 60 poems explaining the history of mathematics in rhyme, and nobody will publish it. And they're all crazy. But at the moment I haven't got to publish it. But it's okay because I'm writing the second one now, and I'm writing about everybody, Einstein, Newton, Isaac Newton, all kinds of people like that. And it's stuff that I've written in the past, and I'm putting it all together. And I think it's lovely in the tour de force. So I leak some poems here and there, send them to magazines and to people, and they love them. So, yeah, and I think I've got to do an autobiography. I think I've got to do it. And this show will possibly be into that. Now, whether this show would go any further, the show I'm doing with Zoe, it wouldn't go with Zoe because Zoe will only do the one. We definitely, but on the 31st at a luncheon, of which nobody else is invited except members, I'm doing a solo version of the show. And if that goes well, I might try to launch it as a solo version in theatres and just see how it goes. See, at my age, I don't need full houses. I don't need the money really to do it. I just do everything for love now. No, I do charge a fee, but I do everything for love, and so as long as I'm working, I'm very, very happy. So that's little.
So where are we able to keep up to date with you and find your books and everything?
I am terrible. I'm on Facebook. I've lost my password. I can't get in. I can't reply to other people, and I don't care because I can't be doing with tickle-tackling all the time. I can't be doing it. But if I've got something important to say, I want to find the person and say it to the person, and I do that, But I really can't do what I have a mobile phone, and I only use it when I'm in the car to say, Di, I'm on the way home, be home in half an hour. And that's all I use it for. And I'm on my computer every day, but I can't be doing with having so many friends and so many contacts and the people you don't know, and suddenly they're sending pictures of their shenanigans and you've never met them. It's too much. It's too much. I can't do it.
But you do have a website, don't you?
I have a website, www.johnnyball.co.uk, and get onto that. It's never up to date, but there's bits and pieces on. But get onto that, and by all means. And when you get onto that, on every page, there's my email address, right? And it's jballpros@aol.com, but it's everywhere. And if you email me, my phone numbers and my address are all on the email, so anybody can get in touch with me, So it isn't difficult to get hold of me. But I can't be doing with all the stuff today. I really can't keep up with it.
Well, many thanks for talking to us today, and good luck with the show.
Great pleasure.